Welcome to Cheat Sheet Tales, where secrets slip, lies unravel, and the truth always has a twist. Real stories, raw confessions, shocking betrayals. Drop a comment if you've ever caught a red flag too late. Now, let's get into today's tale. The pot roast was cold, but no one seemed to notice. My mother kept pouring wine into everyone's glasses, ignoring the growing tension at the table. My brother Jake was in full performance mode, waving his fork dramatically like he was on stage. "Mean, really?" he said with a smirk. "Who needs a smart collar that tells them if their dog is feeling sad? It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." My name is Iris Wilson. I'm 31 years old, and earlier today I sold my startup, Ponia, a pet technology company, to Google for $5.5 billion. But no one at this dinner table knew that yet. I kept my voice calm as I nudged my peas around the plate. "It's more than just mood tracking," I said quietly. "The AI can detect health problems before they become serious. It's already helped save thousands of pets." Jake let out a theatrical sigh. "Sure, it has. What the world needs is more anxious dog owners panicking over their poodle's feelings." "How many of these collars have you actually sold?" I took a slow sip of water, trying to ignore the confidentiality agreement zipped safely away in my laptop. Bagged the acquisition wouldn't be announced until the market opened tomorrow, and I couldn't say anything yet. But in the last year alone, we'd sold over 15 million units and had a waiting list twice that size. "They're selling," I replied. Simply, Jake scoffed. "Selling? Then why are you still driving that rusty Honda and living in that shoebox apartment? You had straight A's, Iris. You could have been anything. You were something. An investment banker like me. Instead, you quit a 7-figure job to tinker, with wires in your garage." The garage he mentioned was actually a custom-built R&D facility, with a team of 50 engineers who had spent the past 4 years changing the future of veterinary medicine. But of course, Jake had never bothered to visit, so to him it was still a hobby project. Our father cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "Jake, maybe that's enough." "No, Dad," Jake cut him off. "Someone's got to be honest with her. She threw away a real career for a fantasy." I held his gaze, calm. "How's the merger going at your bank?" I asked, shifting the topic. Jake's expression flickered. He'd been bragging for months about this big deal he was managing. "It's progressing. There are a few issues, but we're working through them." I nodded, not saying what I knew. What Jake didn't realize was that I had seen the numbers during acquisition talks. I'd gotten a peek into the inner workings of several financial institutions, including his. His bank was trying to merge with a collapsing firm, one that was burying bad debt behind layers of clever accounting. It wouldn't stay hidden much longer. "I'm sure you'll figure it out," I said, finally taking a bite of my cold dinner. 4 years ago, I was soldering circuits by hand and maxing out credit cards just to keep my company alive. Tonight, I was sitting on a multi-billion-dollar deal, and yet my family still saw me as the girl who made a strange career choice. But tomorrow, everything will change. When I first walked away from my career in banking to start Pawprint, no one was more vocal in their disapproval than my brother Jake. He didn't hold back. "Banking is a real business," he told me, shaking his head. "This pet gadget thing, it's just a hobby, a waste of your degree." What Jake never seemed to grasp was that everything I learned in banking was exactly what helped me build Pawprint from the ground up. While he clung to outdated models and played it safe within the walls of a crumbling system, I saw how the corporate world often ignored innovation, even when it was staring them in the face. Where others saw risk, I saw an opportunity. And while Jake was busy pushing numbers around a spreadsheet, I was creating something real, something that mattered. The idea for Pawprint didn't come from a boardroom brainstorm. It came from something deeply personal. My cat Mia had started acting a little off, not eating as much, and hiding under the bed more often. At first, I thought she was just moody. By the time I realized something was seriously wrong, it was too late. The cancer had already spread. I kept thinking, what if I'd known sooner? What if there had been a way to catch those subtle changes in her behavior before they turned into a death sentence? That's when the idea struck me. Pets can't speak, but they're constantly sending signals through their behavior, their posture, their routines. If we could harness artificial intelligence to track and analyze those signs, we could detect health problems long before they became serious. We could change pet care forever. Parent was born from that moment of loss and a determination to make sure other pet owners didn't have to go through what I did. My mother's voice brought me back to the present. Iris, honey, she said gently. Maybe Jake has a point. You're not getting any younger, and that apartment of yours... I smiled, thinking about the oceanfront property I had just purchased in Long Beach, a beautiful modern beach house that I'd be moving into after tomorrow. The real estate agent had raised her eyebrows when I paid in full in cash. But when you've been quietly building a billion-dollar company, you don't need to flash your wealth. You just live it. I like my apartment, Mom, I said. It's close to work. Jake chuckled. Work? You mean your little pet project? He leaned back smugly. Come on, Iris, it's time to grow up. Even the new analysts at my firm are making more than you are. If only he knew. If he had even the faintest idea, his entire bank's market cap was smaller than what Google had just paid for Pawprint. Tomorrow, headlines across every major financial outlet would announce it. Google acquires Pawprint AI in largest pet tech deal in history. But tonight, as he bragged about his latest overpriced car, he still thought I was the underachiever of the family. Dinner wrapped up, and people drifted into the living room for coffee. As I helped Mom carry dishes into the kitchen, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Edward, my lead engineer. Everything's set for tomorrow. Google's press release is queued and ready. Are you sure you don't want to tell your family tonight? I glanced over at Jake, who was still talking loudly, holding court like he always did. I typed back, some surprises are worth the wait, as I tucked my phone into my pocket. My dad came up beside me, drawing a plate. You okay, sweetheart? Jake was a bit rough on you tonight. I looked up at him and smiled. I'm more than okay, Dad, I said quietly. Tomorrow's going to be a big day. I stood at the sink, drying a plate, lost in thought. I remembered all the times Dad had supported my curiosity growing up. The electronics kits he brought home, the science experiments he encouraged, and how he proudly defended my decision to double major in computer science and finance. He never saw my interests as strange or impractical. He always believed in me. I'm fine, Dad, I said, with a soft smile. Actually, you might want to watch the business news tomorrow morning. I think you'll find it interesting. He gave me a curious look, eyebrows slightly raised, but didn't ask questions. Dad had always been good at keeping things quiet when it mattered most. That night, I drove home in my old Honda. People often tease me about it, but I kept it for a reason. It was the last car Mia, my cat, ever rode in before she passed away. I couldn't bring myself to replace it, not yet. As I pulled into my apartment complex, I realized that by this time tomorrow, everything would be different. The money wasn't what excited me anymore. I'd technically been a billionaire on paper, for a while, ever since the acquisition talks with Google started heating up. But this wasn't about wealth. It was about finally stepping into the light, about showing my family and the world what I'd spent years quietly building. My phone buzzed. Again, it was a message from Margaret Evans, my attorney. Final paperwork is in. Also, Jake's merger deal just got flagged for regulatory review. Timing couldn't be better. I couldn't help but smile. Tomorrow, while Jake would be facing a tough board, meeting at his bank, trying to explain how he missed obvious warning signs in the deal he'd been bragging about for months, my face would be showing up on CNBC under the biggest pet tech story in history. Funny how things come full circle sometimes. The best kind of revenge isn't about making someone feel small. It's about proving to yourself that you are always meant for something bigger. The morning of the announcement, I woke up early and made a cup of coffee in my quiet, modest apartment. The view from my balcony stretched across Silicon Alley, glowing softly in the morning light. Maybe it just looked more beautiful today, or maybe that was my mood. At 7:10 a.m., my phone lit up. Bloomberg financial journalists from nearly every outlet were trying to get a comment. The press release had gone out. Google acquires Pawprint AI for $5.5 billion, the largest pet tech acquisition in history. I ignored the interview requests for now. There would be plenty of time for that later. Instead, I turned on the TV and waited. At 8 a.m., there it was. My face on the screen, my name in bold letters across the headline. I didn't expect the wave of emotion that followed. My phone exploded with messages. The first was from Mom. "Iris, is this real? Call me." Then from Dad. "I knew it. So proud of you, sweetheart." Jake's name didn't show up. Not that I expected it to. Silence speaks loudly when someone realizes they are wrong. I headed to the Pawprint office, where the team was already gathering. The energy was electric. People were hugging, crying, laughing. These were the engineers, developers, and thinkers who had believed in the mission from day one. Many of them choosing equity over bigger paychecks, trusting that one day this moment would come. And today, it did. When they first joined the company, many of my early team members were betting everything on a dream. Now, every single one of them was a millionaire. "Miss Wilson," my assistant Rail called from across the office. "Your brother's bank is trying to get in touch. They're asking about possible investment opportunities." I couldn't help but smile. "Tell them to contact Google's corporate development team. We're part of Google now." The irony didn't escape me. For years ago, when I was trying to raise my first round of funding, I'd walked into Jake's bank with my pitch deck and a heart full of hope. He didn't just turn me down. He laughed me out of the building. "Come back when you have a real business," he said. Now the same bank was scrambling to get in on the success they once dismissed. But they were too late. That same morning, as headlines praised the Google acquisition of Pawprint AI, another story broke. Jake's merger had collapsed. The company they were trying to absorb had far deeper financial problems than anyone realized. His bank stock started nosiving before noon. Around lunchtime, my mother showed up at the office, tears welling in her eyes. She wrapped me in a long, emotional hug. "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked, her voice cracking. I held her gently. "What did you think was happening, Mom?" She stepped back and looked at me, ashamed. We were worried about the long hours, about you living in that small apartment. We just didn't want to see you struggle." I led her on a quiet tour of the office, pointing out the labs where our engineers developed AI systems that were saving pets' lives. The walls were lined with handwritten letters from pet owners thanking us for helping them catch illnesses early, sometimes just in time. "I haven't been struggling, Mom," I said. "I've been doing exactly what I was meant to do. I just didn't feel the need to show it off." Just then, my phone buzzed. It was Jake. I let the call go to voicemail. That afternoon, I had my first official meeting with Google's executive team. We discussed expansion goals, global integration strategies, and my new role leading their pet technology division. I'd have the freedom to run the department my way, with a generous budget and full autonomy. It was everything I'd worked toward. As I left Google's campus, another voicemail from Jake popped up. "Iris, we need to talk. This merger situation, that's bad. People are asking about you, your deal. Everyone's watching you now. Maybe you could put in a good word with some of your contacts." I thought back to all the family dinners where he had mocked me, where he called Pawprint a cute side project, and insisted I was wasting my life. Now, he wanted my help. That evening, As I walked into my building, I found him sitting in the lobby. I didn't have to ask how he got in. He was still listed as my emergency contact, something I'd never gotten around to changing. How did you get in here? I asked. Anyway, Iris, please, he said, standing quickly and following me to the elevator. My career is falling apart. The merger's collapsing. Our investors are panicking, and now you're the one everyone wants to talk to. You're the golden child of Silicon Alley. You have to help me. I stopped and turned to face him. Have to. Like I had to sit through all those dinners while you mocked me. Like I had to listen. Do you call my work a waste of time? I was wrong, he snapped. You want me to say it? You're the brilliant one. You made it. Happy? Now we reached my floor. He looked at me, waiting, desperate. And for the first time, he was no longer the big brother who knew better. He was just a man standing in the ruins of his pride, hoping I'd help him out. As I stepped out of the elevator, I turned to face him one last time. No, Jake, we can't talk about this. Not now, I said calmly. Because this was never just about who's more successful or who's more brilliant. It's about respect. You never respected me, my work, or the choices I made. You believed there was only one path to success. Your path. But now you're learning that. Success can look very different, and that's a lesson you need to learn for yourself. He looked stunned. What are you saying? I'm saying good luck with the merger, I replied. I hear Google's corporate development team is great at evaluating due diligence. You might want to give them a call. And with that, I closed my apartment door, blocking out the sound of his protests. I finally turned to my phone to check the rest of my messages. The acquisition had made headlines across the world, and one title stood out. Youngest self-made female billionaire. Tech magazines were already preparing covers with my name. Invitations for speaking engagements were pouring in. But the message that meant the most to me was from a woman in Indiana. She'd written, "Your device caught my dog's heart condition 5 months before we noticed any signs. The vet said if we'd waited, it could have been fatal. You saved his life. Thank you." That single email meant more than any headline. Later, I opened the real estate site to check updates on the Long Beach house I bought. The movers were scheduled for next week. Maybe once I was settled, I'd invite the family over for dinner. Maybe I'd finally show them what their failing daughter had actually been building all along. But first, I had a company to lead and more lives to save. I realized that true success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about staying committed to your vision even when no one else sees it. 3 months after the acquisition, I sat on the balcony of my new home, watching the sun dip below the horizon over the Pacific. The house was everything I dreamed of. Modern, open, peaceful. I had a room set aside for me as old things, a quiet tribute to the cat who inspired it all, and one wall was covered in thank you letters from Pawprint users, stories of pets saved by the technology we created. My phone buzzed. Another message. From Jake. The merger's dead. I've got a board meeting tomorrow. They're talking about replacing leadership. Please, Iris, I need your help. I looked at the screen for a moment, then set the phone down without replying. His bank had lost billions on the failed deal. Word in the industry was that several heads were about to roll, and Jake's was near the top of the list. The doorbell rang. It was Mom and Dad visiting my new home for the first time. "Oh, honey," Mom gasped as she stepped inside. "This is incredible." Dad walked past her straight to the wall of letters. He read a few silently before turning to me. These are what matter, aren't they?" he said. "They are," I nodded. "The money's nice, but this is why I built it." We sat out on the terrace for dinner, enjoying a meal prepared by the private chef I'd hired, one small luxury I decided I'd allow myself. As we ate, I noticed Mom fidgeting, clearly wrestling with something. "Jake's in trouble, isn't he?" she finally asked. I met her eyes. He is, but his choices put him there, Mom, not me. She hesitated. But you could help him now, with your connections, with your influence. I took a deep breath, thinking carefully, before answering. Maybe I could, but maybe this time he needs to help himself. I set my fork down gently and looked at Mom across the table. Do you remember last Christmas? I asked, when Jake spent the entire dinner telling everyone how I was throwing my life away, how I'd never succeed in a real business. She nodded slowly, a trace of guilt in her eyes. The whole time he was saying that, I continued, I was already deep in final negotiations with Google. On paper, I was worth billions. But instead of defending myself, I just sat there and let him talk. Why? She asked quietly. Because I needed to see who he was, I said. Not who he pretended to be when he needed something from me, but who he was when he thought I had nothing to offer. That's when you see someone's true character. The next morning, I drove to Jake's bank, not to help him, but to attend a board meeting. After the failure of its merger, Google was considering acquiring a few of the bank's remaining tech assets. As the newly appointed head of special projects, I was leading the evaluation. It was strictly business. Jake was in the lobby when I arrived. He looked tired, worn down by sleepless nights and collapsing deals. Iris, thank God, he said, walking toward me. I held up my hand. I'm here as a representative of Google, Jake. Nothing more. We're looking into your AI trading platform. We'll be reviewing it over the next few weeks. His face fell. But I'm your brother. Yes, you are, I said calmly. And for years you used that fact to cut me down, to make yourself feel bigger by making me feel small. And now, when the tables have turned, you want that same relationship to save you? I said I was wrong, he murmured. No, I corrected. You said you were wrong. That just means the outcome didn't go your way. Being sorry means you understand the damage you caused and you want to fix it. That's not what you've shown me. I walked past him into the elevator, remembering all the dinners where he mocked my work, the eye rolls when I mentioned my company, and the way he made me second-guess my dreams. The board meeting was short. Jake's team did their best to pitch their tech, but I asked tough questions, pointed out weaknesses, and highlighted shortcuts. I could see Jake shift uncomfortably as I showcased a level of technical depth he never thought I had. This wasn't about revenge. It was about honesty. It was about standards. After the meeting, I found Dad waiting by my car. You didn't have to be that tough on him, he said quietly. Yes, I did, I replied. Not to get back at him, but because someone needs to hold him accountable. He needs to learn that success doesn't come from stepping on others or cutting corners. It comes from building something real, something that helps people, or in my case, something that helps pets. Dad gave a slow, thoughtful nod. You know, he said, you remind me of your grandmother. She built her business from the ground up, faced discrimination, doubt, and hardship, but she never forgot her purpose. I smiled at the memory of Grandma Veronica. She was the first person to invest in Pawprint. She handed me a check and said, "Make something that matters." That evening, I sat in my home office overlooking the ocean, reviewing acquisition proposals. Jake's bank's tech just wasn't up to par. Too rushed, too shiny. On the outside, but weak underneath, just like Jake's approach to success. My phone buzzed again, a text from Jake. I get it now, I really do. I'm sorry, Iris. Not because I was wrong, but because I hurt you. Can we talk? Will he talk? I stared at the message for a while. Family is complicated. Forgiveness is even harder. But after everything, I typed back. Coffee? Tomorrow. My office is at Google. Let's start over. Because sometimes success isn't just about being right. It's about showing others a better way forward, even if they have to fall before they understand. As I looked out at the water, my eyes landed on Mia's old collar on my desk. It has been upgraded now with the latest Pawprint technology. It wouldn't bring her back, but it had already saved thousands of lives, and that, more than anything, was why I started. But what mattered most was that the technology was saving thousands of pets every day. That's what real success is. Not the money, the house, or the headlines, but the lives changed for the better, even if some of those lives belong to people who once doubted, people